Okay, so we will kick off then. So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here tonight on the first of our series, 5-week series of talks presented to you by the National Yacht Club under 25 and under 30 section. We're really excited by our lineup and want to thank Pam and Kenny for coming out tonight and chatting to us. We're looking forward to hearing about everything they're going to talk to us about their double-hand offshore campaign, do things over the summer and everything. So we're really looking forward to it. And without further ado, I will let you guys take the floor. So thank you very much.
Hi guys.
Hey.
For those who don't know me, I'm Kenny and
I'm Pam.
We embarked on a bit of an adventure a year ago, a little over a year ago now, with looking at the double-handed the new discipline of the double-handed mixed offshore series that may or may not be at Paris 2024. Initially it was kind of baby steps and looking just at representing or qualifying to represent Ireland at the double-handed offshore Worlds in Malta, which was supposed to happen last October. But like most things in the last year, because of COVID, there's been a lot of changes, and this is a little bit of the story of where the team came from and all of the changes that we had to encounter over the last year. So I suppose it kind of actually lends itself a little bit to where the team started from was back in November 2019. I'd actually been chatting to Joan Malloy, and we kind of chatted to one another a little bit about teaming up to, just kind of get this spot and then see where it went. But the adventure, that was only the beginning of it, and the adventure's been far bigger, far greater than I ever could have imagined. Joan had some fantastic news, which was greeted maybe not so fantastically initially by me after we planned everything, and then she had the fantastic news that she was pregnant and wouldn't be able to race. So I needed a new sailing partner, and this is where Pam came in.
Yep.
So that was all about kind of this time last year, and actually it's not far off. A month in about 2 weeks into February last year was the first time we ever stepped foot on a figure 03. Thought we were literally just going out to do a couple of weeks training, and then be able to somehow get the boat around a race course to qualify to represent Ireland at the double-handed Worlds in Malta. And that was kind of the start of it. But anyway, the adventure, as I said, was only beginning, because we went out and did our week's training, and then no sooner were we finishing that initial week's training, where we'd never sailed on board a figure 03, nor, to be honest, had either of us done much double-handed sailing.
I didn't do any.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, the world COVID was breaking out literally as we were in France, and we came home, and all of a sudden we were in lockdown. So the boat we had left in France
with the van full of all our sailing gear.
Yeah, all our sailing gear. Joan's van there with all our sailing gear.
I even left like Tupperwares in the sleeves of my new dry top. So just stretch them out, because I was like, we'll be back in a week. They'll be fine.
Yeah. We didn't actually see the boat for, I didn't see the boat for 2 or 3 months.
Or our sailing gear.
Or our sailing gear, for that matter, yeah. So, but a lot of plans were hatched in that 2 or 3 months. And we certainly kept busy during the last lockdown, the first lockdown, kind of March, April, May time, we were very busy. And we can talk about that a little bit later on. I'm kind of conscious of time, but long story short, and with COVID, everything became massively uncertain. For me, as a lot of you know, I run the Irish National Sailing and Powerboat School, and with COVID, it was looking like it was going to be a much quieter season. So I was able to take a lot of time away and big thank you. I know there's a few of the staff listening, and my parents are listening as well, that a lot of people had to step in to allow me to go off to France. And we took the decision essentially to pretty much move to France. So we'll just start. There's a video here, which I think is probably the best way to get started, and then we'll roll into it from that. So that's just a little bit of a where we kind of a little bit of a wrap from last year. So yeah, that was a little bit of a wrap from the year gone by. So to start back a little bit, there's a new discipline in sailing, and double-handed sailing, and particularly offshore, has grown massively popular throughout the world recently. There's actually a double-handed, it's a mixed doubles teams, and there's a kind of a mini online association has been formed, and the discipline is massively popular because bigger boats are kind of struggling to get crew, and with two people, well, as we both found out, because we both came from IRC boats where there was 10 people to kind of do all the jobs. So with double-handed racing, you're doing everything. So you can't just be a good driver. You've got to be a bowman. You've got to be a trimmer. You've got to be a navigator. You've got to run a boats. You've got to be a skipper. You've got to be essentially a mini electrician. You got to be able to run engines. You got to be able to do it all. Repair sails. It's up to you to be on board to everything. And a big positive from the class also has been the mixed element, and encouraging. Sailing has been traditionally, especially professional sailing, has been dominated by males. So it's great that it's a mixed discipline because it shares the exploits. And so yeah,
I think like it's kind of been kind of interesting. I think there's like a few factors that have really contributed to the building and the popularity of the double-handed this year. The Olympics kind of came onto the scene, so that suddenly piqued everyone's interest. And then funnily enough, with COVID coming in the same time, suddenly, maybe not so much in Ireland, but I know in America and other places, there's been it's just suited more to just have two people in the boat, and like less people, less crew. So I think that's really fed it as well. And then, as Kenny said, the mixed element, like already within the sport, there's definitely been from the top and from the bottom a bigger push to try and create pathways for females in sailing. So the double-handed offshore like really feeds into that. So I think people are really grabbing onto it. So it's kind of, yeah, it's been an interesting year, I think, for that discipline of sport, and it's going to be pretty cool to see where it goes.
Yeah, so kind of taking back on from where we just left off for the video, all of a sudden we were in lockdown in Ireland, and we made the decision that we were going back to France, and rather than just qualifying to do a race and represent Ireland and Malta, well, actually we looked at this campaign, and we looked at what opportunities there were for both of us in sailing at the time, and we said, well, actually this is going to be the opportunity. So where originally was supposed to be just a double-handed offshore race, we were packing our bags, going to France. I actually went out in the car in lockdown with my dad, and Pam fled a bit later, and we packed our bags, went out, and we collected the boat, as a lot of you know, because the boat came back to Ireland. So and I think there's a video here. So we went out and we flew out in kind of May, sorry, and bearing in mind we'd sailed a figure 03. We've done 4 days sailing on the boat.
With Joan, when we went out in February, we went to, because the initial plan was like, okay, Joan's not going to sail, but she's, done the figure out before, so she's going to teach us, the basics and stuff. So we had 1 week with Joan in France before lockdown came in. I think it blew like 40 knots every day. Yeah. So we basically spent the week just like hanging on to the boat, going, oh my God, there's only 2 of us on here. Like, what the hell? So I'd say like how much we learned that week. I don't know.
and the boats are fast as well.
They have like it was totally new for me anyway.
Yeah. So like, average speeds on to put things in perspective, like, average speeds in those kind of conditions are kind of 12 to 15 knots, which doesn't sound massively fast, but I know from having a J109 at 10 knots in a J109, you were wondering if the keel was going to stay on. But a figure does 10, 11 knots out all day, every day. So we basically flew out. Boat was still in its cradle. We did a couple of days prep. We left a car over there and we jumped on the boat, and we did our first double-handed passage home, 600 or I don't know, 300 and something miles.
Yeah.
And started off actually lovely and light.
It was lovely at the start. Lovely sunset.
Yeah.
Very pleasant. Very pleasant.
Pretty much motoring up to Quezon, and then the breeze built as we came across the English Channel.
Less pleasant.
And coming up the Irish Sea that night, or coming across the British Channel, kind of across the Celtic Sea, approaching the Irish Sea, the wind was just building and building and building and shifting into the west. And we downloaded weather forecasts and gribs, and we had weather files, and we saw maybe 30 knots coming up the Irish Sea. That according to the weather forecast. But the reality of the situation was coming around Tusker, we were flying and we were just under main and a jib, and we were doing big speeds, and there was big grins, and there was water everywhere, and this was cool.
Yeah, legends.
And then about 2 hours later, we got knocked down in 55 odd knots.
Oh, yeah.
And for those of you that maybe don't understand what knockdown is when the top of the mast is in the sea.
Yeah.
So we were fully on the side and in 55 odd knots.
In a boat that this was our first time sailing this.
Yeah.
Boat. Yeah.
Didn't really know the boat, but knew the coastline. Yeah. But anyways, we got the boat back and to Ireland safely, which was awesome.
This little picture of us actually is us coming down past Bray Head. I think my auntie took it, and you see we've got like a double reef in the main there, and just the J3, and we are hammering like.
We're doing about 20 knots of boat speed, and that's not an exaggeration.
No.
That is, we're doing actually 20 knots of boat speed there. The boat's fully the foils, I suppose, is just to explain, like the foils on the boat are not there to give us lift. Like the boat doesn't fly like an Amaka or like a Moth or something like that. The foils are there basically to assist in righting moment, to stop the boat heeling over. But at big speeds, they actually will lift and level the boat. This is in flat water coming past Grayson. I'm spot on. And just put things in perspective, that's the smallest sail plan we can have on the boat. Is double reef main on a J3. Yeah. And actually for 2021, we don't have a J3 anymore. They've just gotten rid of them because nobody really uses them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What the next slide is? Oh, that's video. Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is back in Dublin, where we had the boat home for 3 weeks, and this is kind of, we just went out no matter what the weather was, just
basically
to learn how to sail.
Yeah, the plan, it was literally like going back to basics. We were like, okay, I've never sailed double-handed. You never, I don't know, you've done a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, it was literally like, okay, how does one jibe on your own, like solo? So we were practicing doing solo and double-handed, because the idea is, if you can do it solo, then you can do it double-handed. So we were kind of working on both. So we basically just went out and started trying to learn to sail again.
Just Monday afternoon training session, first training session night at Larry. A bit windier than we thought, which is pretty normal for us in a figure out realistically. Blown about 30, 32 knots. We're set up with a reef in the bay, J2 up. We're just yachting along here about 72 at an angle, doing 12 knots out towards the Kish. We're not going to stay too long, so we won't get what we want to achieve 30 knots. But it's great to get out, keep the momentum up on the boat, and just remind ourselves that this boat is just so wet.
Yeah, they're pretty wet.
Yeah, the boats are pretty pretty wet. Yeah. Sorry. Here's
just when you do get up on the foil, it kind of starts to hum. So this is a new thing for us as well. So this is just like video just shows kind of basically we're just figuring out how fast it goes.
Yeah. The setup here for those of you sailors, that's a code 0 with the J3 inside it and a full main. So this is kind of, if you want to go out and set speeds, this is the sail setup you go out with. The boat's probably doing 15, 16 knots there at that stage. Sorry. Here we go.
Oh yeah, and then this is just a little look inside again. Even with this, like we'll talk about it just afterwards, but we had so much learning to do.
All right, we're just downstairs here. There's Max. There's the controls, and yeah, as you can see, we're just coming up to Wolf Rock, which is our third mark to go around in this race. We just had a really shitty leg where the wind went all over the place. You can probably see our track here. Went all the way down there, no wind, when we were on, and it's just squeezed in, and we put up the J2 and the code 0 up to Wolf Rock, and then down and back to France. So hopefully we're going to, this wind's going to stay in, and we're going to offshoot and shoot back down. Is that right, Max?
There you go. Yeah, so I just thought I'd stick those in because it kind of just gives a little idea. Like all of this was totally new to us. That was Adrena. That was in the first race, double-handed race we did. That was Adrena. I had never used Adrena before. I was a bit familiar with Expedition, but Adrena was new to us.
Yeah, Adrena and Expedition. Sorry for those of you who aren't aware, it's a navigation software. It's like Navionics, but it takes into account a lot of the factors of the boat and speed and weather forecasts and tides. It's basically like a supercomputer. It's essentially like Google Maps for boats. and not massively complex, if I'm honest, but it is when you first look at it.
Yeah, and that kind of, all of that kind of tied in with like what Kenny said during lockdown. Because before we managed to get out to get the boat, we were kind of stuck in lockdown. But the whole time we were kind of thinking, we're going to go out, we're going to get the boat somehow, and we're going to do something. So, you know, we were doing online Adrena courses, online weather courses. We're doing some online French.
I was learning French. I did like 2 hours of French every day.
So by the time we actually got out and got the boat, at least we had a little bit under wraps. But even just, you know, getting up on using the foils for the first time and figuring it all out, like it was a pretty steep learning curve, I think, for both of us, probably.
Yeah, it was massive learning curve, and it was great because it was great to have a new challenge, a new project. But I suppose in all of this, then what happened was there's an Irish guy who lives in France, Marcus, who actually owns the boat, and we charter the boat from him. But Marcus was a little bit of he's a great guy, but he kind of knows when to just kind of shove you over the edge of the cliff. And back in February, Pam and Joan and Marcus had joked. They were like, "Oh, Kenny, you'll do the solitaire," and I was like, "No, I'm not doing the solitaire." Like, I'd heard all these stories, and I was like, "Nah, not for me. Solo." I was like, "Nah, nothing to do with me." And then, you know, being in Ireland and lockdown, and the way the plan changed, and essentially double-handed events got cancelled, and there was going to be a lot of solo events. I kind of just got that friendly nudge on my back and went hurtling down the cliff into the solo offshore world, where it was pretty much destined that I was going to go and do my first solitaire, which we'll get on to the detail of it in a minute. And we were going to do some double-handed events, but, you know, to do a solitaire, one thing I say from the outset is, yes, you sail the boat alone, but you can't go into a solitaire thinking you can do everything on your own. You can't. Everybody has a preparateur, they have friends there supporting them. You need a lot of people to support you to do a solitaire. So because we're a team, Pam was going to be my support. So I was going to do some solo races leading up to the solitaire. We were going to do as many double-handed races as we could. And we kind of started down this journey. And it was, and you know, it's a whirlwind. It's hard to place exactly where everything happened. If you look in the photo on the left, the boat is in its old branding. It used to be Will Harris's boat. And all of a sudden we realized we needed so much stuff. So thankfully from a previous campaign, I had contacts in Helly Hansen. So Helly Hansen came on board as sponsors. North Sales as well, Shane and Nigel and Prof jumped in straight away. You know, and so hence why I'm wearing a North Sales t-shirt. And thanks to the lads. And we ordered some more sales this morning. So so, you know, but you know, they supported us, and Expedition Foods, and you know, it doesn't seem like much, but you needed all the help we could get. And actually the photo is me there crouching on top. You don't need to know how much that sail cost. No one needs to know that, but that's me on top of sail putting on spreader patches.
Lots and lots of extra spreader patches.
Lots and lots of extra spreader patches. I'm actually just looking at myself. That's probably 2.5 months into France.
You're very tanned.
I'm very tanned. Thank God I'm going back to France. So we started this massive journey, and I'd sailed, I'd done deliveries solo. I did a lot of skippering. I've been professional sailing since, I know, for a long time. And I love sailing. A lot of people on the chat will know that. But I never really sailed solo. And then the Figaro class is the toughest offshore solo class in the world. And that's a key reason why we're in France. That's why we're sailing the Figaro. It's not because they're cool and they've got foils. They're actually awful boats to sail. I'm letting the secret out of the bag here.
I like them.
They don't point higher than 50 degrees true up wind. Now, to put that into perspective, for those of you that teach sailing or have been taught sailing, we tell you that in a basic sense, as an instructor, a boat points at 45 degrees to the wind. Now, a lot of boats like an Aero or a Laser or a J109 will point to 30 degrees to the wind. A Figaro, the closest you get to the wind is 50. And after that, it stops. So they're awful things to sail. But the reason we sail them is because the discipline of sailing, which is short-handed offshore sailing, one design, and looking at the Vendée Globe, which we'll talk about a little bit later, the French are the best. So if you want to learn, you got to go and got to go back to school.
Gotta go and get sent to you buy some Frenchies.
Yeah. So first event I did was the
oh, sorry. That's just Kish.
Oh, well, we might skip
Yeah.
that one. We're just going to skip this one.
And the next one's driving.
We might come back to these.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
so it was all going to team up to be this event, the La Solitaire, and the Solitaire wasn't until a lot later on the season, basically end of August into September. And we'll come to the Solitaire in a moment, but the first event I did was Solo Matricoque, which was out of Les Sables d'Olonne, which is where we're training at the moment. Sorry, I'm gonna go back a few. Sorry, I've jumped on here a bit.
Now you're back at the start.
Sorry, so the first event I did, so a small bit of the slides there. The first event I did was the Solo Matricoque, which was starts out at Les Sables, goes north up past Belle-Île, south first down around Ile de Ré, through the bridge, then up north, passing Ile de Yeux, and then Belle-Île, another island up around a lighthouse not a million miles off Lorient, which Lorient was where we were based, and then back down to the finish in Les Sables. And on that first race, the wind conditions were perfect for learning. It was 10, 15 knots. It was lovely. It was easy. And it was easy until they bring you back to Les Sables and they pretty much put you through the finish line. But then because the Figaro 3s are faster than the Figaro 2s and they haven't really changed the course, they send you back out on a 70 mile, basically 30 miles out and 30 miles back to this weather mark. And if they had finished that race in Les Sables, I would have been happy out. Everything went well, no damage, no nothing. But that 30 miles was 25 knots out and then 25, 30 knots on the way back. And it was a beat out there where I got hammered. The jib pulled out of the foil and then I had to peel to the J3 and it was miserable. And then on the way back, I was watching the boats coming downwind and they were all flying their big spinnakers and it was blowing 30 knots. And like, usually speaking, we don't fly our big spinnaker in 30 knots in the majority of the sailing we do in Ireland. So I had to swallow a lot of brave pills and put the big spinnaker up and basically held on to a winch on the way back and did 30 miles in like 2 hours. There's some stupid speeds like that all the way back. Totally soaked, couldn't leave the helm, couldn't go downstairs, just kind of hoped everything would be okay and got the boat back.
It was okay.
It was okay, yeah.
It's like, it was also, because so that was the first race that I was doing preparator for, which the French do. And like, so you're there and like, there's all these like really strict, the regulations are really strict because it's really strictly one design. So there's loads of things that need to be ticked and stuff before. And like, you're kind of there with the skipper and it's already tense and you're trying to make sure they're okay. And then they kind of sail off and you're like, okay, so, oh geez, what do I do now? And then you just kind of sit there watching the tracker for like a few days. And then they come in and you're like, so how was it? And they're like so tired, they can hardly talk. You're like, do you want food? Do you want sleep? So it's interesting from both sides because it's just like, it's seriously intense.
And I'm conscious of time here. So the big one was, so the next race we did was actually double-handed together, which was the Dream Cup, which was out of Cherbourg. Cherbourg, and the little video was that Palmas downstairs navigating with. And that was great to do it double-handed because that's what the whole game is the double-handed game. So it was nice to do that together. And then all of a sudden it was the Solo Concarneau, which was basically going to be the last solo race before the Solitaire itself. And I performed a bit better in that race. And that one was heartbreaking. There is a video on our website, orlsailingteam.com, and on the YouTube about that. But that was it had a lot of positives in that race, but ultimately at the end of the day, it was heartbreaking. But it was good. I put me in a good stead for the Solitaire. So to just introduce what the Solitaire is, the Solitaire, it's called the La Solitaire du Figaro, and where it came from was, and where the name came from is that it's was originally sponsored by the Figaro newspaper, because in Europe, basically most of Europe goes on holidays for August, and everybody takes holidays. And as a result, there's not a lot happens in the media. There's not a lot happens in the news. And the Figaro newspaper at the time was like, well, what do we report on? And this is in the 80s. So they basically said, well, why don't we send a bunch of guys off on these solo races on their own to be at sea for kind of 4 odd days and 4 nights. And we'll hear the stories about hallucinations, sleep deprivation, crashes, etc. It'll make a great story, and it'll give people to read while they're on the beaches. And that's where the idea originated. And originally it was sailed in half-tonners. And after a number of years, they got a one design boat, first of all, the Figaro 1. And then as the years went on, the Figaro 2. And then this was actually the second edition in the Figaro 3. And it is dubbed the hardest sailing race in the world. On average, it's about 1,800 miles is the planned routings, and those are the routings as the crow flies, over 4 legs. And to put things in perspective, the first leg was was out to the Fastnet and back from Saint Kitts Portachu, which is a little bit west of Cherbourg. And essentially it's like doing the Fastnet race, and then you
longer.
It's like pretty much the Fastnet, but then you come ashore and you're back on shore for 3 days, and then you essentially go out and do another Fastnet, and then you're ashore for another 2 or 3 days, then you do another Fastnet on your own, and then you're ashore for 2 or 3 days, and actually thank God the last leg was cancelled. But this is kind of where it had all been put forward to. I was totally nervous. I was a wreck. I was doubting myself, and didn't know if we could do it. But we had sails. We put a lot of time and effort into it, and so that was kind of being pushed off the edge of the cliff. So the first leg, as you can see there, is from St. Brack out around Wolf Rock, out to the Fastnet and back again. May not be able to see it in the slides. And the second leg, we went from St. Brack up to Dunkirk, and then the third leg we went from Dunkirk all the way back to Saint-Nazaire, which is south of Belle-Île. It's not a million miles off where we're training at the moment.
And I just put this picture on the left here where you see that's a screen grab from the tracker, because everyone on shore is following the tracker, trying to predict when they're going to be in, who's wearing who's what. And there's just there's a few things that really stand out about this racing that is different from any offshore racing I've done. Is one, the boats are they are so close together the whole way through the race. In the last race that Kenny, the last leg of the solitaire that you did, what was it, 4 days? And the boats finished, the last place and first place finished almost within an hour of each other after 4 days of racing.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly close. And the second thing is, the standard of these sailors is off the charts. There is guys in there who've won Vendée Globes, who've won the solitaire several times, and they're all racing in the same race as the rookies and everything else. So it's a real mishmash of standard and background, and just really, really intense competitive racing. So it's pretty cool, but it's definitely somewhere to play with the big guys.
Yeah, there's actually quite a funny story. When we went out to get the boat the first time, we were all the boats were in their cradles up on shore, and we were prepping our boat, and there was a boat beside us.
I met Jan.
There's a boat beside us, and this guy is chatting away to us, and he's
so friendly,
very friendly, very nice guy, and chatting away. I have no idea who he is, and so it turns out he's Jan Elias, and we were like, oh, okay, who's Jan Elias? I had no clue who he was. And put things in perspective, Jan Elias has done the Vendée Globe 3 or 4 times. He was third in the last one. Third in the last Vendée. When we were chatting to him after the solitaire, he just finished the solitaire, and
he's won 3 solitaires.
Yeah, he's won 3 of them, and he was just doing the solitaire to get the 4th win. But then after the solitaire, he was going off. He was a standby reserve skipper for one of the Vendée boats for the Vendée that's just happened, and if he didn't need to go, he was going to be on Gitana for the Jules Verne attempt, which is the round the world attempt. So this guy's an absolute legend. You know, he's just chatting away to you as if he's your new best friend, and he was
He's very nice,
very nice guy, always checked up, and actually
he knew, like, it was actually really nice. Like, I'd be on the dock and he'd stop and go, oh, how is Kenny doing, like, how is he doing? Like, he knew exactly who everyone was. It was really cool, like, really cool vibe, but like also just
but yeah, Pam's absolutely right. Solitaire is we'll play a video here, and I'm conscious of time, but what I would say about the Solitaire is it's actually not the most physically demanding race, although physical fitness plays a big thing. It's actually the most mentally challenging experience of my life, because as Pam says, the boats are one design, and in that last leg, like it's 99 hours, you don't really sleep, because the boats are one design. It's like sailing a laser non-stop and concentrating non-stop for like, in that last leg, 99 hours. And if you think in your laser or your 29 or your one design class, you know, your race length is 45 minutes. You concentrate for 45 minutes. So like, to put things in perspective, in that last leg, 99 hours, I only got into my bunk, like actually into a bed and lay down for 30 minutes in 99 hours. I had a lot of 10-minute naps on deck, but the only time I got into a bunk was for 30 minutes. So needless to say, like, when I crossed the finish line, I pretty much just...
Yes, they're literally like, because I'm actually in Saint Nazaire, which is when they finished that one, and in Dunkirk, they finished kind of far out, and there's like a number of locks that the boats have to come back through. So the organizers organized for the proprietors to go out and we meet them at the finish line, because these guys are so wrecked that they basically, like, once they finish the finish line, they're not going to be able to bring the boats through locks. So we kind of go out and you get on the boat, and like, honestly, the skippers are like, because at one race I went out and received another skipper as well just to help out, and they're like kind of like yabbering on and saying like some weird stuff, and you're just like, yeah, sure. And like, one time Kenny came in and he was like, oh, there's so many things, there's such a long job list, there's all these jobs, and he starts like listing off all these jobs that he got to do, and I'm like, okay, cool, yep, got that, all these jobs. And then like, he gets some sleep the next morning, I'm like, so that job list, and he's like, oh, no, there's no jobs. What are you talking about? There's no jobs. And I was like, okay, you're just completely delirious. Yeah. So it was interesting to see the skippers come in, and all of them are the same. The guys at the top and the guys at the bottom, like, everyone is just, they've just all worked so hard. So yeah.
I had some great chats with myself on the Solitaire. And
with the GoPro. The GoPro is your best friend.
The GoPro, and with the other race, the Solo Concarno, which is actually in the slide there, Belle-Île, awful place, lovely place to go on your holidays. Don't go sailing around there; it's an awful place. And anyway, there was a big shutdown there in one of the races, and you know, the fleet got turned upside down. But I came back and I was fully convinced. I had a chat on the radio with one of the other skippers for 20 minutes, fully convinced. So I could tell you every detail about that chat. I didn't chat to him at all, not once, in reality. So, and like, you're in charge of a boat.
It's concerning, really.
Yeah. So I'm sure there'll be some questions. So there's a video here of the Solitaire.
Hours of pain wrapped into a few minutes.
That plug's not accidental, by the way. If anybody wants to lend a hand, we're open and willing. I think I've just gone back.
There you go.
So that's kind of it from the solitaire for me. I just want to talk about one or two things just related to the solitaire, which we learned, and then Pam led an amazing project back here in Ireland. So one of the big things that we get asked is and I chat about literally every day. I had the same conversation today on the marina in Dundee. You know, everybody asks, what's the big difference between sailing in France and sailing in Ireland? To be a little bit careful, but the biggest difference between sailing in France and sailing in Ireland is in France it's a national sport and it's public, and the public get involved, and there's sponsorship, and it's not peanut sponsorship. There's big money involved here. A lot of the teams in the solitaire were, well, not a lot, but the top teams in the solitaire had budgets of $250,000 for the year. Now, I certainly didn't have $250,000, but that's the kind of budgets that the sponsors are throwing at the teams, and they're not throwing the money at them because they've been doing this for years and years and years and years, and that's just in the Figaro. And if you look at the Vendée Globe, the Vendée Globe is a French race. It's a solo around the world race. It's French. There was 33 60-foot, some of them foiling, a lot of the non-foiling boats on the start line this year. To put that in perspective, they were going around the world non-stop on their own. Now that's nuts. I'm pretty nuts, but like I think that's even a level.
Really? You wouldn't consider?
A level too nuts for me.
I would if someone gave me the money.
But all of those boats, and I did the comparison today. Of the 33 boats, 30 of them were sponsored by French companies. Now, to put things in perspective, the ocean race, which was known as the Volvo Ocean Race, the ocean race is struggling to have one confirmed entry at the moment, and that's a worldwide race. So the question is
with
why
stopovers. That's that's more of a sponsor stream.
Yeah, exactly. With stopovers, media stopovers, and for the sponsors. So the question is, why is sailing so popular in France? And the biggest thing is the public, and they get the public involved. The boats, being the Figaros, the Amacas, the elite boats, are kept on the same pontoons, and the pontoons are public pontoons. There's no fingerprint access. There's no any signs, anything like that. When you're down working on the boat in the pontoon, any member of the public can come down and have a chat, look at you on the boat. Now, obviously in Ireland, it may not work because of security concerns, but the public are involved. And
yeah, like where we had the boat in Lorient, like we're parked there beside like 6 other Figaros. Next to us is like 3 Amacas. Then there's one of the trimarans.
Yes,
and then there's like, and there are all these massive boats just all sitting there, and anyone can walk down and at least, maybe, not get on them, but can see them. So you have this like visual access to the world that is sailing, and it's kind of, it's interesting.
And it goes a lot further than that, and because the boats are visible, and the skippers being us, we're visible to the public, and we talk to the public. It's on us as well to promote the sport. But as you can see here, this is one of the stopovers. This is in fact in Saint-Nazaire, and we had to do this at every stopover. Was the French school children came down and got to ask questions about the boat, and I'd take out a life jacket and take photos of them with a life jacket on. And it was a little bit restricted with COVID, as you can see. It's myself and one of the other skippers, and we're wearing our masks. But so it's a little bit different with COVID this year. But there's a huge, massive emphasis to get the public involved and capture the public's imagination.
Yeah. And it was interesting because I was, as we were doing port to port for the solitaire, I was booking the Airbnbs, and I was checking in with the Airbnb. So I was meeting nearly all the owners of the Airbnbs who I met. I mentioned that we were down for the solitaire, and nearly all of them were so happy to meet me. They're really excited. They were just like, "Oh my God, so amazing. A skipper from the solitaire staying." They wanted pictures with us. We got invited to actually family parties. We had them down at the boats with their kids. Someone actually took photos of Kenny leaving and then printed them out and gave us to us. Like, they really got behind the whole thing. It was really, these are just like random towns in France. Like, they go to different ports every year. It's really, really, really cool to see that kind of like, like the way that we watch rugby. I
was a full Z-list celebrity.
Yes.
But no, that is a big thing in France, and I think it's seen, and yeah, we're elite, but like there was no egos out there, and there are no egos. Like, and you know, that's the exact thing. Like, you know, to give a Armel Leclerc, who he's won the Vendée Globe, he's won the Figaro 3 times now, and when I was prepping the boat before the Figaro, his boat was parked next to mine down in the pontoon in Port La Forêt, and he walks down the pontoon and he sees me and I'm there. He's got a team to prepare his boat, and Pam was busy with work, so I was like down putting stickers on the boat and putting the sails on it. And he walks down, so I'm doing my own work, and he's like, "Oh, bonjour, je m'appelle Armel," and I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, I know exactly who you are." But and you know, they're so friendly, and he's asking, "Can he give a hand?" And his preparateur, did I need his preparateur to do any work on my boat? You know, so it's a massively awesome scene. There's no egos, no nothing. It's cool scene.
Yeah, it's definitely could learn a few things.
So
that's the video of the this is just, I just chucked this in because of the Vendée Globe being right now, and this just elaborates. This is when we first went over, and this is just down in La Basse where we first picked up the boat, and we were just strolling around. Like, yeah, we were with Marcus, who's running it, so we knew that the boat was going in the water this day, but literally any passerby could have been here or doing whatever. Any tourist could have walked in and seen this, and it just
and there was no
security,
no security, zero health and safety. Everybody just knew to not be under the boat when it was being lifted.
Yeah.
There's
a skipper. That's
Thomas. That's the skipper. He's just finished 4th in the Vendée Globe.
Yeah.
That's Marcus's car, holding the boat in check as it's being towed down behind the forklift.
Just thought I'd chuck it in for good.
Yeah. This boat being lifted across onto its wheel.
I just thought, I stick that in because I mean, you see, there's just some dude on his bike hanging out by the side, just like watching it happen. And there's been a lot of talk. I don't know how many people have been watching the end of the Vendée, but there's just been so much talk, you know, that the really close finish and them all going, it's a Figaro finish, it's a Figaro race, it's, you know, and all of that. So I just thought it was interesting to put it in, especially in the context of what Kenny was saying about the really close racing and in that water and the amount of French sailors doing it. So hopefully that kind of gave a little bit of context to why so many people were referring to the end of this Vendée in particular as similar to the Solitaire. It's because of that close racing.
Yeah, incredibly close racing. Yeah.
In those waters. So yeah.
Yeah. So and after the Solitaire ended. It was 3 legs. Toughest thing I've ever done in my life. Don't really have massive ambitions to do it again, if I'm totally honest. But I've got enough character at this stage, as I'm sure some people on the call will know. So we rounded off the season with we did Speed West together, double-handed, as a bit of a fun event. And I suppose I was having we lived with Marcus for the summer in the apartment in Lamore Plage, just beside Lorient. And I don't know, I think we'd just come back from a day's kite surfing or something like that, and I was cooking dinner, and Pam and Marcus were having a few beers as I was cooking up dinner.
Don't have beers and talk shit because it leads to bad ideas.
Yeah. So I was minding my own business, and I came out and put dinner on the table and sat down, and Marcus and Pam sat down. They were like, "So Kenny, Pam's gonna go around Ireland," and I was like, "Oh, all right," and I'll let Pam take it away.
So this again, like Kenny's Solitaire, kind of came out of the blue and off the back of things not happening. So, you know, that off the back of effort of trying to make things happen, which I think is very much what led to Kenny doing the solitaire as well. Kind of trying to look at a situation and saying, okay, what can we do? So yeah, I was just kind of sitting there and I was doing the prep stuff for Kenny, and it was, you know, getting all of this. And then, you know, Marcus is kind of challenging me. He's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, what are you know, this, females in sailing that. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't have a boat. And he kind of was like, he goes, well, you know, I'll give you guys the boat for an extra month, you know, rent free or whatever, if you go and sail around Ireland or, you know, something like that. And I was like, okay, I will. So from that, I mean, first, from that small idea, like a kind of a big thing grew. It started off as just, you know, I was like, well, I don't even know if I can sail around Ireland, and can we even get this boat back we have to get the boat back to Ireland. And we had to like suddenly start looking at this like mad time frame where Kenny finished the solitaire, then we did the Dream Cup. Was there even enough time to get the boat back to Ireland?
Yeah, Kenny, by the way, was promised. Kenny learned to kite surf last year as well. So like France was like total learning experience. Kenny was promised after the solitaire and after the Speed West, he was getting a week's kite surfing in, no stress of sailing, absolutely nothing. To show you how tight the time frame was, Pam delivered the boat. We did Speed West. Pam delivered the boat from Speed West, and I drove the car up, unloaded it, and then was looking at the weather because all of a sudden we had to get this boat back to Ireland. So I'm looking at the weather, blah, blah, blah. Pam Leary delivered the boat. She got into Port Laff at 8 o'clock in the evening, sundown. We drove home. I was like looking at the weather again. I was like, we've got to go in the morning. And we also had to get COVID tests. We also had to do everything. I was like, we have to leave tomorrow or we're not getting out of here for 2 weeks with the way the weather was going. So we got into Port Laff. It's a 40-minute drive from Port Laff to home. So we got home, and then basically we had a quick dinner, packed our bags, sent a few emails, booked some COVID tests, and went to bed at midnight, got back up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and went to do COVID tests and jumped on a boat and came home. So say I was like tired on the delivery home would be like a massive understatement. But you know, it was all for all the right reasons. Yeah,
and just a little bit on how the idea came together. So, you know, it came from again a gentle push, shall we say, from our good friend Marcus. But also, you know, a lot of the stuff that has spouted from the double-handed sailing, like for me, opportunity to do the double-handed sailing, and like Kenny asking me to come and do him, it was absolutely massive. Offshore sailing before, I've got a massive amount of miles like on paper, crossed the Atlantic 7 times, done this, done that, all this stuff, but I felt anyway that I never really gotten the chance to skipper, to drive, to really get a go of the navigation. There's always, you know, 10 people above me, and you know, down to a lot of things, but I did feel that like I also didn't know many, there is some, but I didn't know many females who had gotten those opportunities. And basically nearly all the boats I'd sailed on were super, super male dominated. Anyway, so this thread was there, and the double-handed for me, like for the first time, I was like, oh my God, this is class. Like I'm getting to helm, I'm getting to trim, I'm getting to do the nav, I'm getting to do all of the things. And it's really challenging me, and it's awesome. And I was like, this division of sailing is a really good opportunity for girls to start coming up into that kind of lead role on boats and getting the opportunity, because there's that kind of vacuum now to put them in. So I think we all really wanted to kind of highlight that, and like in a way kind of bring it back to Ireland and just send a bit of that message. So it was because of that we decided that I'd do it with a co-female skipper. So we wanted to do 2 girls sailing and double-handed, and kind of bring it back to Ireland a little bit. And also just the challenge for myself to see, I had never sailed around Ireland before because most of my sailing had been overseas. So all of that kind of came together, and simultaneously I was applying for a mentorship with the Magenta project, which I now have as well. So I asked them if they'd be willing to get involved and kind of support the idea, and they were. So the Magenta project is a charity set up by the women of SCA, which was the first all-female boat to do the ocean race. So they've set up a charity which basically creates pathways and avenues and support for females going through sailing, whether from amateur or professional. So they came on board with their support, which was really cool, which helped kind of give us a little bit of momentum. And Kat, my co-skipper, she was doing the same job as me in the Solitaire for 2 of the English skippers. So we actually met out there. And I mentioned the idea to her and she was up for it straight away and she was free. So prior to sailing back to Ireland, much like Kenny and I, Kat and I had actually never sailed together. So that delivery one was kind of our first test. And then we had a little bit of time, in Ireland to train. I don't remember what's the next slide. Oh, this is, so this is a little video of our adventure. And then I'll talk a little bit about how we actually managed to pull this little project together. There you go. So there's a few things that I like to point out. Like, I hope what comes out from the video is like sailing around was one thing, but like what really helped the whole project was that Kat and I actually had a really good time the whole way around. Just like when Kenny and I will stay together, we really enjoy sailing together and it's good fun. And it was the same for Kat and I. Like, the main thing that really helped, like, it was cold and miserable at times, but we had great crack the whole way around. And we both just really enjoyed it. And for both of us, it was a massive opportunity to step up. Neither of us had done anything that big before. So we were really stepping up and out of our comfort zone together. So I think that really lent to the success because we were so pumped about it and we were putting our heart and soul into it and we were having a good time. So we basically kind of suddenly came up with this whole thing. And initially it was like, oh, we'll just see if we can get around Ireland. And then, you know, we're like, well, we might as well try and get a record while we're going. So initially we kind of set out to set the double-handed female record. But actually what happened was we sailed around so fast that we ended up not only getting the double-handed female record, but we got the double-handed outright record and we got the 40-foot and under record outright fully crewed. So that's how kind of well the project went. But like the thing that's kind of really important about this, like we kind of pulled this out of nowhere. And there's, you know, Kat and I learning to sail together was one thing. Like we'd both been on Figaro before, we both sailed double-handed with other people. So it was, you know, just kind of coming together and joining our skills. But we had the baseline there. Neither of us sailed around Ireland before, but we knew how to navigate. So we were able to kind of pull it all together. But there was so much going on behind it because this wasn't an organized race. There's not all that kind of support. Like we were kind of doing this completely off our own bat, and it was October. So, you know, there was a lot of nighttime, lots of nighttime, so much nighttime. I definitely underestimated how much time we were going to be sailing in the dark, and it was really cold. So, and we were going to be out there on our own because there wasn't a fleet that we were racing with or anything else like that. So there was a few elements where people like really came in. As you see there, Kenny and I basically swapped roles. He became the preparator super on shore. And, you know, while Kat and I were running around like headless chickens trying to practice sailing and, you know, we actually ended up getting quite a lot of media attention. So people kept wanting to talk to us and just even trying to get our heads around the navigation. Oh, God. trying to get our heads around the navigation and make sure like we knew what was coming and when we were ready. Like Kenny was on shore, you know, doing all the life jackets, prepping all of that, prepping all our safety stuff. We had all the extra safety equipment. We had all of that going. At the same time, Miles Stedham came on and he was helping us with the navigation. So he the whole time was kind of watching the weather window. And basically the idea was that we had to be ready to go, like literally ready to go. And he was kind of going to let us know. And initially, what was the start going to be?
Yeah, the start was basically with what I thought was 24 hours to go. It was a day to go. It was pulled forward by effectively 12 hours. So basically I thought we had 24 hours, and all of a sudden at 12 hours. So the girls got the boat up to Dunleary, and I pretty much just put them in a jeep, and I said, go home and sleep, and I'll look after the boat. And then I was prepping the boat, and then it actually was quite funny with the media stuff and with our involvement with North Sales. And I see Prof is on the call now. North loved us for a bit of PR, and it was 9 o'clock at night, and I was down in the Irish, and it was like freezing cold, and I get a text from Nigel in North, and he's like, hey Kenny, don't forget we've got that call with the States at 9:30. And I rang Nigel. I was like, Nigel, I'm prepping a boat that's going to leave the dock at 5 o'clock in the morning. I said, I don't have time for a call now. And I rang Pam, and Pam was like, Kenny, like, we can't do this call. We've got to sleep.
Still probably putting in my waypoints, going, oh my God, I don't turn right.
Whatever way it happened, Norths were pretty much just like, no, you got to do the call. And we were like, okay. So I like jumped into the Jeep and had the lights on in the Jeep and my phone charging off the like CarPlay in the middle of the night doing a call with the States on the thing. And girls were at home trying to get ready to go. So
packing our toothbrushes.
Packing their toothbrushes, yeah. So it was pretty nuts. But like it's all, when you look back at it, it was you at the time you were like, Jesus, we don't need this level of stress. But then we look back at it, we achieved it all, and it was perfect to do it.
We had, I think, from the time we landed, we got all that rush on the France side. Then we got back, we got a hell delivery back. Like we got hammered on the way back, so we were already wrecked. And then I think we had a week on shore, in which time Kat and I had to figure out how to sail together. We got the sails down to down to Shane and North. He did a full inventory on all the sails, and then we went down. They gave us a run through on how to patch up sails, and they gave us a patch kit. At the same time, we were trying to figure out this. I was going through my photos, and I have a picture of my dad at the kitchen table, with a toothbrush, trying to get my GoPro to work again because my GoPro wasn't working. Mum was helping with food. It was just like all in for a week. It was absolutely mad, and it didn't stop there. Well, for us, actually, this was the amazing thing that I loved about it. For us, it did well. Like for me, all of this madness of the prep for the week before, and the whole time I was going, like, I have to be perfectly honest, I was going, I don't even know if I can take this boat around Ireland. Like I haven't done this before. This is the biggest thing that I'd done, on my own shorthanded, and Kat was the same. But once we got out and, the start line, we were starting between Kish and Dunleary, and we knew we were going to have a big downwind leg that day. We knew the wind was breathing. We had a reef in the main, and we had a small kite up. And once we popped that kite and we're going off, I just got like this silence, and I was like, now all I have to do is sail. Well, like, meanwhile, all the guys on shore still had like all this, all this chaos to deal with. And Brian Carlin had come on board to help out as well. And so, Kenny was still on shore, kind of tracking us the whole way around. He'd subsequently, just still things that like you don't think about, the organization that kind of goes into it. It's like Kenny had called all the Coast Guards to let them know that we were going around, so that, Coast Guards don't see this little boat and go, what the hell are you guys doing out there? And subsequently they actually flew out in the chopper to say hi off the West Coast, which was quite nice. But all these little details, and at the same time I was freaking out that something would happen with COVID, and they'd tell us not to go, and then we were moving the start line because of the weather windows, but so all these guys on shore and all the other people kind of running around doing all this stuff, while actually Kat and I were having a great time sailing quite fast around Ireland. And to be honest, we didn't really realize how fast we were going until we got signal at some point and we got some messages and people were going, Jesus, guys, you're actually going really fucking fast. We were like, oh, we have been going quite fast. Yeah, we're done. But for us, it was just like, we were just, we were really sailing, like we were really concentrating and really thinking. And we were just, you know, the thing was with this, like we had a good weather window, but it wasn't perfect. Like we had park ups and we weren't hammering the whole time. But we did not have a single mistake or a single mess up. Like every time our motto was slow and deep. For every sail change we were doing, we went really slow, really deep. We planned it out and we did it properly. And then we came back up and got going. You know, all our maneuvers, we just thought about it. We put it through the paces. We communicated. I really enjoyed the whole thing because every tactical decision we made, Kat and I were having a chat about it and discussing about it, and you know, so it was a really cool thing to happen because it was just such a nice come together of so many people helping out, and then Kat and I really getting the opportunity. Like thanks to all these people, we got the opportunity to, you know, put what we've learned for the last few years into action. So it was nice that it actually paid off as well. And then, you know, it was madness to the end. I don't know how many of you guys were tracking. We had over 1,000 unique logins into the tracker, which was amazing because, you know, part of it was like, I really did want to, you know, maybe inspire a few people who are thinking of sailing, people who already sail, but also, you know, girls and people who don't sail. Maybe it's something they'd be interested in getting into, and the fact that many people logged in and followed the tracker around. And like there was one point we completely parked. We thought we were kind of heading in and we were coming around and we thought we were pretty much on the home straight, and we completely parked up just north of Belfast. And we were essentially heading over to Scotland at about like -2 knots. And my got phone signal, I should have turned my phone off. Don't know why I had it on. Anyway, I got phone signal and my dad called. And I was like, oh, hi, Dad. He's like, Pam, I'm just calling to check. It seems that you're going to Scotland. I was like, yeah, Dad, I know we're going to Scotland. I'll talk to you in a few days. Like, but it was really cool that you know, that many people were following. But then, like to the very end, of course, we started in the dark, we finished in the dark. Yeah. And if it weren't for having the support and Kenny having the rib and, you know, the thing going to come out in the pitch black and everything like that, like none of it could have happened. But yeah, so it was a good adventure and a really good opportunity to kind of step up and hopefully inspire some people to do some similar stuff around in Ireland, and some girls to get sailing and aim for skippering and aim for taking on the challenges as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it just highlights from both our perspectives. Like, you know, Pam and Kat sailed the boat around Ireland, and I did the solitaire, and then this year we're thankfully for the first time getting actually sailed together, which was the whole idea. But I just like to reiterate, like for me, like I couldn't have done the solitaire without Pam and that team support and the thing. And I think people maybe underestimate actually how much goes on in the background. And you know, it's the same with the Round Ireland, as Pam has said. Like you can't do this stuff in your own. You need to ask for help. And you know, to reiterate what I said at the start, that's where we've been so lucky with North Sails and Helly Hansen, Expedition Foods. And even small helps like Greystones Marina giving free lifts and free berthing, and
or even just the encouragement of people going, oh, that's cool. You're like, oh, okay.
and you know, and also, you know, both of our parents, and then you know, the guys who work in the school for me, and also in the Marine Services division as well. So you know, there's so many people that have actually helped out for both of us to be able to do this, and we can't forget that, and it's very important that everybody realizes that this is no walk in the park. It's actually pretty tough holding it all together.
Yeah, but also that, you know, there is opportunities out there and you can make stuff happen as well.
And I think that's a big thing, which we're about to talk about now, is like, look, I know we did all of this in with COVID, and people ask and they go, you know, people say to me, and like, you know, there I am, they're going, oh, like my friends, they're going, there goes Kenny to France again, you know, how can he do it? And I'd like to reiterate, like we did this because we wanted to do it, and there was a desire and there was a drive and there was a motivation to do it, and we couldn't have done it if you don't get handed these opportunities. You got to make them happen for yourself. So Yeah, there were some areas that were handed to us, but there were a lot of areas we actually had to make it happen. Like even we're going. It's no secret. Like we're going back into France to train, and we have to go. Like we need to train, and that was a big part for me last year. Was I was so frustrated last year because I knew I needed coaching, I knew I needed training, and for me there was no point in going out sailing. I can sail a boat, but I needed Figaro specific coaching, and I couldn't get it with the way COVID season and COVID happened and all the rest of it. So this year we knew I was like, I'm not doing this unless we get coaching, unless we get training, Figaro specific coaching. But, so we wanted to go to France, we wanted to sail, and we wanted to train, and we're lucky enough that we're classified as elite athletes. So, but, for us to go on Saturday back out, the amount of paperwork, phone calls, over the last 2 or 3 days to have bits of paper and get COVID tests.
Endless COVID tests.
Get COVID tests, fill out forms, to actually go and do this and not be breaking any laws, and also not being reckless, because we don't want to be reckless. We don't want to spread COVID, but at the end of the day, we want to achieve something. So I'm not saying that everybody can do it because of COVID, but certainly we are doing it because we have a drive. And last year was a big showing of that, because there were so many times last year from when the first COVID lockdown came in late February, early March, we could have both given up and just, this isn't going to happen. But there was a desire, there was a drive, and there was a motivation to do it. And it takes that to make it happen. So this year, we learned a lot from last year. Number one being that trying to go around Ireland.
I should have put a picture of the car in.
Yeah.
Oh, I drove around France, meeting Ken Solitaire in what sort of car is it? It's a very small car.
It's basically a 3-door sports car. A little
sails, bags, dock box, kite surfing gear, surfboards, everything.
Yeah, it was nuts. So like a big thing from last year we learned was like we need support. So this year we've got a trailer, it's racked out with shelving, we've got a van, we've got all these bits to make our life a lot easier this year. So literally from the moment Pam finished around Ireland, and
then we still had to bring the boat back to France after that.
We had a bit of
which is also a horrible delivery.
Yeah, we had to find a weather window in November. I can tell you that of all the deliveries, we brought the boat back.
There isn't weather windows in November.
Yeah, we had a lot of miles in that boat over that year, but that 48 hours bringing the boat back in November, I thought I was coming out of Greystones just ahead of a gale, and I was going, or just on the tail end of a gale, and the gale would pass, and I kind of have 35 knots on a kind of from the west on a reach all the way to northern France.
Fast forward 24 hours, I'm like, hey guys, I think we need to put another reef in. I'm seeing 50 quite regularly.
Yeah, if 50 knots going down the RC, which is a bit of crack. It was fast though. It was cold.
It was very cold.
So yeah, like 2021 is going to happen. We're in our infancy. We're going back out to France now. We've got the trailer, the boat, but even sorting the boat and sorting all that is things you've got to think so far ahead. The last 2 mornings I've had Zoom calls with North Sales talking about the development of the sales and ordering sales for the season. There's reserving the boat. There's booking accommodation. It's non-stop, while at the same token trying to hold down a job and a company, even in COVID times. So, but we're making it happen, and we're going out there.
This is.
Yeah. So we're going out there, and we're gonna give it a lash for 2021, and
yeah, and I think our main thing so far is we actually have been out for a bit of training, and it's so good. Like last year, we just really.
Yeah, the training is awesome, and we'll throw in a few. We'll leave it to questions, because we've probably gone way over time anyway.
Sorry,
but this is just a quick.
If we could just say, Kenny and Pam, thanks so much for sharing it with us this evening. It's been wonderful.
And,
thank you. To look in the future, and also to Nicole and to Will for putting the series together, and Nicole for curating tonight.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's been fantastic. As you know, there's over 60 people online watching it and enjoying every moment of it. And as you say, you're up to your eyeballs now trying to get ready for this year. Thanks so much for sharing it with us tonight. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. We'll field a few questions in a second. This is just a literally 40-second clip from training a little bit earlier on so far this year.
Yeah, with training with other Figaros. Woo!
of Seychelles. And I'm just been up the bag, getting the kite ready.
See, it's not any sunnier there.
Yeah, pretty banana, basically windward lewards. Hooking the banana. It's actually suffering from a seized neck back there. Voice attacks, so cold. Jives, drops. Do their figure outside. So guys, we've I know we've probably gone way over time. And Nicole, you can tell us to stop whenever you want. But I suppose we should open it up. Does anybody have any questions about solo sailing, what we did, what we're planning on doing? Feel free to throw out a few questions there.
We actually have one here in the chat. Just saying thank you for kind of talking through your achievements and everything the past few years and last summer, and almost like what now, like what's coming next, what are your goals for 2021, 22 and Olympic campaign? Well, for this season 2021, we're going out and we're training now, which is great. It's not that it all depends on budgets, but there's a large part of it depends on budgets and time. Yeah. In an ideal world, we just move to France, and we do solo races and we do the double-handed races. But the focus is the double-handed. So we've got three races this year. We've got the Sardinia Cup, which is in April, which is a 2-stage race. First stage is about 400 miles. Then you come back in for 2 or 3 days, and then you go back out and do 700 miles. It was supposed to be down to Nazaré in Portugal, but with COVID, it's staying within French waters. Yeah. Then after that, we have the Tour de Bretagne, which is basically like a multi-stage race around Brittany, stopping into different ports. And then we've got a bit of a break, and then we're doing the Rolex Fastnet, the Rourke organised Rolex Fastnet. But because it's out of Cherbourg, because it's finishing in Cherbourg this year, there is a specific Figaro 3 division, a double-handed Figaro 3 division. So our entry's confirmed, and the deposit and etc. was paid this morning for it. So those are our 3 big races this year. Potentially there will be a double-handed Offshore Worlds in Malta, but there's been no confirmation on that. So our season is potentially a little bit fluid, but at the moment that's our Figaro plan, put it that way, for the year.
Basically, it's there's still a lot of announcements to be made about the Olympics and also then the Worlds and then subsequently Irish qualification. So our agenda is basically continue getting as good as we possibly can at double-handed offshore, and then when those things come up, we'll be ready to go. Yeah. And the Figaro fleet is, for us anyway, is the best place to be doing that. So. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. If anyone else, any questions?
Just to say, well done on the girls' achievement there. That was very interesting, and on getting your record as well. And a question for Kenny. I gather you said you didn't sleep for 90 hours or something like that, as the same with the other skippers. How can you ensure safety when you're that tired and disorientated? I mean, are you just literally on automatic and you're all so good that you manage to keep going? But normally that would be horrific.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a fair question. I suppose what's not really known about the Solitaire, there's 3 guard boats follow us around, and we do safety check-in in the morning and in the evening, and there's chatter on the radio the whole time. You do survive a lot on adrenaline. Funny enough, if anybody thinks you drink a lot of coffee, you don't. I love coffee and I drink a lot of coffee, but I actually had to wean myself off coffee because it gives you such highs and lows. So
pre-race start weaning.
Yeah, so to answer the question, it is actually as safe as it can be for solo racing. There is risk, and it was shown there was a boat when the skipper fell asleep and put the boat up on the rocks on Star Point on the second leg of the Solitaire this year. So there is risk, but it's about managing yourself and managing your thing, and that's the big thing about the Solitaire. You don't have to be just the best sailor. You can be the fastest sailor in the world all you want, but you've got to be able to manage yourself to get you and your boat around the track in one piece.
Kind of like the Vendée.
Yeah, just sounds amazing from a layperson's viewpoint. Well done.
The question here, we both mentioned times of self-doubt before undertaking our challenges. Pre-event days, how do I keep that in check? I suppose I'll go first, so I did the solitaire first. I was like, well, that's, I did all sorts of things. I ran and made sure to get plenty of exercise, made sure to eat healthy. I thought logically through it, looked at the weather, thought about the safety side, talked about it. Pam was as much of a parateur as like a counsellor, pretty much on talking through it. Talked to my parents, talked to my friends, and it was really just to talk about it and go. And also to know that, like, if it wasn't going, if I felt at any reason that there was no shame in pulling the pin and just going, halfway through it, or just go, actually, do you know what, this isn't, I'm not safe here, I'm not enjoying this, and just to pull the pin, and that there was no shame. But well, there would be, but yeah, there also isn't. But you just got to manage it as best you can. And at the end of the day, I knew a little bit different to Pam and Kat. I was going out with 30 other boats around me, whereas Pam and Kat went out on their own.
Yeah, I think like kind of what Kenny said, for me, when that stuff's coming up, and I've done it with other competitive things, is I think beforehand being as physically fit and, like as Kenny says, cutting the coffee and being mentally good. If you feel good in yourself, then I always think that I know that when shit hits the fan, basically, or when I'm feeling really crappy, that if I have the underlying kind of fitness and goodness, I'll be able to carry it through more. But in the around Ireland, like as I said, there was the times of that week when I was going like, what am I doing? I don't even know if I can do this. Part of it that helped was the fact that I'd already committed to it, so there was no backing out. So that was helpful. But also it was having someone like Kenny there, who I viewed as more experienced and knowing, and him going, you can do it, you're fine, you've got this. That kind of helped a lot. And then also, as Kenny said, like our support system was very different. Like, yeah, we were out in the Atlantic on our own, and if things went bad, it was going to take a certain amount of time for people to get to us. But I knew that our tracker was being watched the whole time. I knew the Coast Guard knew that we were out there, and we had scouts calling in twice a day. So like, really, it was kind of like, well, what's the worst that can happen? So bad things can happen, but it's knowing that, or like, informing yourself of what the worst thing that can happen is, and then kind of in your head running through the reality of the scenario, and kind of remembering that you've got backup there. So I think support team is really a massive part of it, and that's probably the same as the solitaire, knowing that there's people there if things do go wrong.
Yeah. There's a question here from Prof. Running in the rain, fair play to Prof. I went for a cycle on my fancy new Y cycle in the rain last night. But two questions. What do we use for nutrition? Nutrition's big. We're both pretty fit, active people anyway, so nutrition is something we don't really lack in. But on board, our standard meals are from Expedition Foods. There's no cooking facilities in the Figaro. There's basically a jet boil. Jet boil is like a glorified kettle. That's all it is. It boils hot water. That's about it. So we live off freeze dry. We add the hot water to a dehydrated meal, and there's nice flavors and there's a lot of calories in those meals. But
and there's something really important about having a warm meal in the evening as well. Like it really splits your day, or just like, it's so good.
And for me, I carried a lot of fruit, a little bit of chocolate, but also for the first 2 or 3 days, or 2 days, I would have left the dock always with fresh food that was prepared by Pam. Yeah. So salads, a little bit of chicken or some kind of
protein and veg.
And it was really important to have those fresh meals and the fruit, because freeze dry is fine. It's nutritious, it's tasty, but it's not as good as fresh food.
For me, I've definitely I've thought about this, and I pretty much almost totally avoid sugar. Like I don't bring sugary snacky treats or anything. Like I've said with a lot of people who do. I'll eat dark chocolate and chocolate. But I always bring like carrots and celery and hummus, or just carrots and celery, because then you have something fresh that's going to keep, that you can kind of nibble on. So you feel like you're having a snack, but you're not getting that like sugar high and the sugar drop. So
certainly with the offshore staying, we steered totally away from coffee.
Yeah.
I might have a coffee as a treat.
Yeah, carrots and hummus.
Carrots and hummus, yeah. Pretty much exactly our staple diet. We steered away from, and then your second question, Prof, is to almost always to hand steer. No, I could probably count on one hand the amount of times I hand steered that boat this year. The autopilot's so good. Once you learn how to set up the autopilot's so good, it's better than you when you're tired. There's so many settings in the autopilot, and there's so many different variables in it, but you get your head around it relatively quickly. But you know, you might steer for the first like hour, maybe 2 hours, because you know, a bit of motivation, all the rest of it. But like after that, now you can pretty much steer on the pilot. The only time you need
certain conditions. Right?
Yeah, when stuff gets a bit real and kind of like big breeze downhill, you do need to take over and drive.
Or like really shifty.
Yeah.
We drove quite a bit up the west coast, because it was quite shifty, and also like it was so cold that if you're out on deck, and you know, we were set up, we weren't going to be doing any sail changes, and you're essentially, you know, you're just on watch, then it was better to drive to keep warm and at least keep focused and keep awake. So it's kind of times like that, but really on those boats you can use the auto massively. You have to be able to use it because you're essentially on your own. So
you can put a lot of faith in that autopilot.
Actually, one of the biggest learning curves was getting used to trusting the autopilot.
Yeah. You kind of have to trust it when you're doing like 18 knots and you're on the bow, like right down. Kind of sort of qualification sails to before the solitaire. Absolutely, yeah. I had to finish. I had to complete one of the races, either the Dream Cup. I could have done solo, but I wanted to do it double-handed because that's the whole aim of the team. But to answer your question, yeah, we had to finish and complete the solo Matricock or the Dream Cup if you did it solo, or the solo Concarno. You had to complete one of the three of those solo as your qualification. And there was a little bit more, but I'd been sailing for quite a while, so I had to kind of send in a bit of a CV because I was unknown in France. That was the level of qualification. Is there any other questions there, guys? Oh yeah, planning on doing the fastest double-handed? Yeah, yes. Fiona, yeah, absolutely. You're doing the fast and double-handed, not under IRC. There's a figure-out division. So we'll be in the figure-out division. So that our results will be separate to the IRC results.
But we'll be there.
We'll be there, yeah. Booked accommodation in Cowes this morning. Doing all the pre-stuff in Cherbourg and then going to Cowes. We're in Cowes 2 days before the race. Focusing, of course. There'll be no points.
No points.
Any other questions, guys? Mark says that the boat is runners. How do we jive the boat with runners and all the sails, etc.? Yeah, it's a good question, Mark. If you run the boat, so you're absolutely right. Yeah, we do need to use the runners. The runners, they're not so much runners. They're actually more backstays. And there is a difference because runner goes all the way to the top of a rig. And it holds the rig in check and stops it from falling over the front. Now, backstay does much the same thing, but ours go a bit lower. And the Figaros are over-engineered. So you can get away with coming off the runners under kite, downwind, at very deep angles. So as we go down into a jibe, we actually can, when we come off, like say in light airs, you don't really use runners, like up to kind of 12 knots, you don't really need them. They just kind of hang around. You might use them upwind a little bit, but that's about it. And then, but in the stronger conditions, kind of 18, 20 knots, as you come in for a jibe and you bear off, once you come down out of the fast angles, like 140 degrees down into the deep angles, 150, 160, the pressure really comes out of the rig, so you can blow your runners. and their spreaders are swept back enough that the rig won't go over the front of the boat. Sure, the forestay gets loose, but in our maneuvers and our procedures, there is actually we do have a procedure that one person before you into the jibe will pre-make the next runner. So before we heat back up,
you just get it grinded on. So you have to. All the maneuvers and stuff are just about like basically setting everything up. You're always just setting stuff up.
It's like any boat. There's a procedure and there's a practice, and there's a set of procedures to carry out the maneuver, and they're written down, and then we follow them. So once you follow that, it's pretty straightforward. Keane has a question there. Opinions on a choice of boat for 2024 Olympics? Do you think it'll be the Figaro? It won't be the Figaro. Guaranteed it won't be the Figaro. The Figaros are all owned independently, so for them to bring the Figaros and make them, they are one design, but to make them like all the ropes the same color, and the level of one design needed for the Olympics, that's not realistic for the Figaro. The L30 has been having quite a bit out there, but realistically, the Olympics in France, it's got to be a French boat, and the obvious boat of choice is the Sunfast 3300. And I don't think you need a degree in rocket science to figure that one out. That'll be my view anyway.
Heather, are you continuing with Magenta Project and getting women sailing? Yeah, so I'm actually a mentee of the Magenta Project mentor program. I've got a really cool mentor, Sam Holliday, who actually is team manager for one of the Vendée Globe boats, and he also runs class 40 races and stuff like that. So it's been really cool, rather than teaming me up with a sailor, like just a good sailor. They've teamed me up with someone who's going to basically help us with that kind of all the side of stuff, like the sponsorship stuff. That is also another thing that we have to do loads of work on. So he's helping with that. So I'm part of that program for this year, and really involved. And then, yeah, we definitely want to do some more things in Ireland with the Magenta Project. We're currently working on sailing week with the colleges, with Irish colleges, and Magenta Project are coming on to support that. So we're going to be doing stuff with them. So we're going to try and bring that in as much as possible. And I'll definitely, any opportunities that kind of come through and come up and come through that, I'll very much share. And if anyone ever wants to pick my brain or get in touch with Magenta Project, any ideas or questions in the mentor program, absolutely, you can pass on my contact details and feel free to get in touch. So
we have another question.
Am I hoping so? Yes, I would like 2 more girls to come and smash my record, please. And then also I'd like to come back in like a bigger, faster boat and beat my own record. So yes, please take it on. Let's keep it going. Just like every year we just get a better record. No, that's the whole idea. I would definitely love for more people to come in and try it, more girls to try it, like another double-handed girl team, definitely, and hopefully do it again myself in something faster.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah,
got a lot of enthusiasm there. Any other questions? I think we've got a few there. I suppose just a massive thank you guys for coming out and chatting to us this evening. It was great to hear about everything that you've done in the past year or so, and hear about the campaign all coming together and each of your respective successes. So it's really great to hear that, and it's kind of an inspiration for everyone else to listen in and to kind of learn from you and kind of give us a boost, I suppose, ourselves. So thank you very much. Just want to say best of luck 2021, all your training and competitions coming up, and yeah, thanks to everyone else for being here tonight as well. We really appreciate it, and it's great to have you here tonight. We are going to have another one next week. I think Damien Boxall is coming in to speak to us, so it'd be great to see you all again next week.
Yeah, and if anyone has questions about stuff or want to get in touch with us with stuff, anything like that, like always reach out. Our emails are there, but also we're pretty much always on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. So if anyone, feel free to yeah, sounds great.